This chilling footage shows 22-year-old Leslie Palacio being helped into the house by a close family friend. The two had known each other for years, and Leslie completely trusted him. But minutes after entering his house, Leslie would be dead.
Same camera catches Rangel Ibarra and another man, who prosecutors believe is his father, 46-year-old Jose Rangel, dragging a lifeless body from the home and into that same truck. These crime scene photos inside the home showing a stripped bed and blood spatter, though investigators say they have yet to determine whose blood it is. Investigators also taking photos of gloves and cleaning supplies in the home.
What happened inside that house? Why did Eric kill Leslie? And how was his father involved in this heinous crime? The details to this case are really troubling, so be warned. Leslie Palacio was an incredibly bright and beautiful 22-year-old woman from Las Vegas, Nevada. She was the second born of 5 sisters and was described as kind, courteous, and always made people laugh. Her family was her entire world, and she loved cooking and taking care of them. In fact, her biggest dream was to earn enough money so she could live in a big house and care for her family. In 2020, Leslie was working towards becoming a phlebotomist, someone who draws blood from patients. She was taking a course at Las Vegas College and also working as a lab assistant. Her lab instructors said that at first she was a bit shy, but quickly came out of her shell and became unstoppable. She was really good at her job and loved drawing blood. But Leslie had other dreams too. Her sister Carly shared that just a day before Leslie's tragic death, Leslie had told her she wanted to change her path and become a crime scene investigator. It's heartbreaking knowing what happened to her afterward. When the pandemic hit and her mom lost her job, Leslie stepped in to help her start a cleaning business. Leslie also loved working out. With gyms closed due to the pandemic, she got creative and started exercising in the backyard with her family. These moments became cherished memories for them. Her sister Carly mentioned that Leslie also dreamed of opening a clothing boutique together someday. Leslie had a bright future and so much to live for, which makes what happens to her even more heartbreaking. On Saturday, August 28, 2020, Leslie wanted to go out and celebrate after finishing her lab assistant program. Some places in Las Vegas had started to open up, and she thought it would be a good chance to unwind. She started reaching out to her friends to see if anyone wanted to join her, but no one was available. Then she got a text from a guy named Eric Rangel Ibarra, asking if she wanted to go out. Eric wasn't a stranger to Leslie. Their families had known each other for over 15 years, and some reports even said that Eric's mom was Leslie's godmother. But even though their families were close, Leslie and Eric weren't exactly best friends. They were around the same age and would hang out sometimes because of their families, but they didn't have much in common. Leslie's sisters mentioned that Eric had always shown romantic interest in her, but she didn't feel the same way. He would often text her trying to get her attention and start something more, but Leslie only saw him as a friend. So when he asked her out that night, she didn't think that much of it or feel like she had anything to worry about. Still, being responsible, she told her sister Carly where she was going and who she was going with. But before she left, she mentioned something strange. Eric wasn't planning on drinking that night. On its own, that might not sound odd, but considering he was the one who invited her out for drinks, it seemed a bit suspicious that he wanted to stay sober while she was drinking. The first place Eric and Leslie went was the Longhorn Casino and Hotel. CCTV footage shows them arriving at 12:31 a.m. in Eric's white Ford F-250. They got out of the car and walked into the casino together, where they were seen on surveillance footage starting their night. They stayed there for over an hour, and at 1:56 a.m. they were seen leaving the casino to continue their night out. Everything seemed fine during the first few hours, and Leslie kept her sister updated on what they were doing. But then, around 4:40 a.m., Leslie sent an alarming text to Carly that read, "Dude, I've got to talk to you about some shit." At the time, Carly didn't know that this would be the last text she'd ever receive from Leslie. Carly kept texting Leslie asking, "What happened? What is it?" But all her messages were left unread.
It looks like she was typing and it just stopped and she didn't reply back for an hour. So I tried calling her and her phone was off. So I find that really weird because she never does that. She always has her phone on. She's always in contact.
Leslie didn't come home that morning, and her family started getting really concerned. At first, they thought maybe she had drunk too much and decided to sleep it off at Eric's place, planning to come home later. But as hours passed and there were still no signs of Leslie, the worry grew. By early afternoon, a few members of the Palacio family decided to go over to Eric's house, hoping to find Leslie there. But when they arrived, something immediately felt off. They saw Eric's mother and sister carrying pieces of furniture out of the house. While that might not seem too strange on its own, it gave the family a really uneasy feeling. They approached Eric's family and asked if Leslie was there or if she had been there. The Ibarra family claimed that they hadn't seen her and acted that they didn't even know that Leslie and Eric had gone out the night before. This immediately set off alarm bells for the Palacios, and they got to work. Leslie's older sister Carly began calling local hospitals, thinking maybe there had been an accident and she was injured, but that was a dead end. They tried calling Eric, but his phone went straight to voicemail. The Palacio family was now in a state of panic, desperately working and wondering what happened to Leslie. The next day, on August 30th, they went to the police and reported her missing. At first, the police thought Leslie might have just decided to leave town on her own, but her sisters insisted that was impossible. Leslie was about to graduate that year, and she had just started a business with their mom 2 days earlier. It didn't make any sense for her to suddenly leave like that. Leslie was also known for being responsible. She always made sure to text their parents when she was out. She would never just disappear without telling her family. As the police began their investigation, Leslie's family and friends started making posters and sharing them around the neighborhood and on social media, hoping someone would come forward with information about where she might be. Then, on August 31st, the Ibarra family went to the police with some shocking news. It turned out that Eric wasn't the only one missing. His dad, Jose Rangel, was missing too. Eric's mother told the police that Eric had gone out drinking late on the 28th, and when he returned the next morning on the 29th, he was acting very strange. She saw him leave the house, and he never came back. The police found it suspicious that Eric was missing, but the fact that his father was also gone added a strange twist to the situation. To try and figure out what was going on, the Las Vegas police started driving around the neighborhood, hoping someone had surveillance cameras. They were not disappointed. The house right across the street from the Ibarra family had security cameras pointed directly at their house. What those cameras captured was truly horrifying. But before we get to that, let's look at the Ibarra's family's strange behavior.
I don't know why they were packing their stuff. Like, that looks really suspicious. But like, you know, if your son is missing, you should be cooperating with this. You should have the same pain that my mom is having right now.
Then, neighbors started noticing unusual activities in the family's home.
A family of 5 lived there, and she hasn't seen anyone for nearly a week. She tells me she saw people coming to buy items from the family, and then a friend of Palacio took these photos of the family on September 1st at that home. Now the neighbor, who did not want to show her face, says over the weekend police came to the home in the middle of the night and searched it.
I don't saw nobody for 6 days, or I don't know, more than 6 days. But that day, yeah, that's crazy. The police and everything. But I think they already left.
So things were not looking good, and the Palacio family were now even more convinced that their so-called family friends were hiding something. But at the time, they still could not tell how bad this thing was. Now, Leslie's phone records came in around this time, and investigators were able to easily track her movements that fateful night. They learned that after leaving Longhorn Casino and Hotel, she and Eric had gone to Putter's Bar and Grill and got there at around 2:15 a.m. After that, her cell phone placed her at the Bourbon Street Bar and Grill, where she stayed until around 5:50 a.m. before she and Eric headed home. The neighbor's surveillance cameras captured Eric's truck arriving at his family's home minutes later, and Eric can be seen helping Leslie, who is clearly intoxicated, to walk from the car into his home. Then, horrifically, the two men are seen dragging what appears to be either a lifeless body or someone who is conscious out of the house. It would later turn out to be Leslie's body wrapped in a bedsheet. They put her into the back of the truck, and then Eric drives off. His father is then seen cleaning the driveway, probably to try to get rid of the evidence.
Prosecutors say video from the morning of August 29th shows 25-year-old Eric Rangel Ibarra helping 22-year-old Leslie Palacio, seen here alive, get out of his truck and into the house. An hour later, in video we've blurred due to its graphic nature, the same camera catches Rangel Ibarra and another man, who prosecutors believe is his father, 46-year-old Jose Rangel, dragging a lifeless body from the home and into that same truck. Minutes after, the truck drives off, leaving Rangel hosing off the walkway.
With this new evidence, the missing persons case was now turned into a homicide investigation, and homicide detectives took over the case. They obtained a search warrant for the Ibarra home, and inside they found more evidence to indicate that Leslie had lost her life inside the home. It was obvious that there had been a major attempt to clean the place. There were cleaning supplies everywhere, latex gloves lying around, and several trash bags just sitting on the floor. But the biggest piece of evidence was found in Eric's room.
These crime scene photos inside the home showing a stripped bed and blood spatter, though investigators say they have yet to determine whose blood it is. Investigators also taking photos of gloves and cleaning supplies in the home.
This new development left Leslie's family shocked and heartbroken. They could not understand why Eric would even hurt Leslie. How could they have been so wrong about him and his entire family? A manhunt for Eric and his father as efforts to find Leslie's body also began.
Tonight, the search is on for 2 suspects. Today, we stopped by the suspect's home. A neighbor tells us they left. The search is on for 25-year-old Eric Rangel Ibarra and 45-year-old Jose Rangel. Leslie Palacio was last seen on the security video with Eric on August 29th at the Longhorn Casino on Boulder Highway in Harmon. A pickup truck the men were last seen in has been located in California.
I really don't understand because I saw these people right here for like 8 or 9 years.
Authorities were able to obtain a warrant for Eric's phone records to see his activity that morning, and they found that after leaving with Leslie's body, he had called a friend from a place near Valley of Fire State Park. When the police contacted the friend, he confirmed that Eric had indeed called him that morning, asking for help buying gas because he didn't want to be seen on surveillance. When the friend asked him why he needed gas so urgently, Eric said repeatedly, "I killed a bitch, I killed a bitch. She's dead in the back of my truck." With these revelations, the investigators now knew where to look. And on September 9th, just over a week after Leslie was reported missing, her family's worst fears were confirmed.
It's news the family of Leslie Palacio was dreading. Just over a week after being reported missing, her body was found earlier today in the Valley of Fire, north of Las Vegas. Her family says all of this started after she met up with a family friend. Leslie's sister spoke to 13 Action News a few days ago about it.
She went to Longhorn Casino with Eric Rangel.
And here he is. Police are now looking for the 25-year-old in connection to her disappearance, and they're working on a warrant for his arrest for open murder.
Leslie was found partially clothed, lying behind a large bush. Eric hadn't even tried to bury her. This just goes to show the contempt that he had for her, probably because she rejected him. The high desert temperatures had sped up the decomposition process so much that the medical examiner couldn't determine her exact cause of death. Despite everything, some members of her family had still been holding on to hope that they would find her alive. So this discovery left them totally crushed and devastated.
Leslie Palacio's body was discovered in the desert last Wednesday after days of frantic efforts to find her alive.
We're scared. We can't even go out because we're always looking everywhere.
Now her loved ones fear for their own safety as the search continues for those connected to her death.
The next day, September 10th, a candlelit vigil was held in her honor, with friends, family, and community members remembering her for the amazing person that she was.
Tonight's gathering just really was an example of how much Leslie was loved. You can see behind me here, they took the candles that were used for tonight's vigil and placed them outside her home to spell Leslie. Now, the dozens that came together here tonight wanted wanted to honor who she was. They also say they want the person responsible for her death to pay for what they did.
Leslie's family and friends also matched her in her honor at the Longhorn Casino and Hotel, calling for justice.
I need justice for my sister. We all want justice for my sister. They are out here free. You don't know if they're gonna kill someone else. My whole family is scared.
The manhunt for Eric and Jose went on for weeks, with investigators and Palacio's family asking for the public's help in locating them. A major break came when Eric's truck was spotted in a bus station in Paris, California. Investigators learned that Eric and Jose had spent the night with some relatives in Moreno Valley, and he had asked for help in crossing the border to Mexico. But then, on January 19th, 2021, which is 4 months after Leslie's body was found, Eric's father, Jose, turned himself in at the border.
Metro announced that Border Patrol in San Diego detained 46-year-old Jose Rangel for active warrants relating to this case. Rangel was booked in Clark County on January 31st on warrants for harboring, concealing, aiding a felony, and destroying evidence.
During questioning, Jose tried to minimize his involvement in Leslie's death as much as possible. He said that he was in the garage that morning when his son came dragging Leslie's body on a bedsheet. At the time, Jose believed that she might have died of an overdose. He then decided to help Eric get the body out of the house to keep it away from other family members. When Eric began acting strangely and threatened to harm himself, Jose decided to flee to Mexico with him.
Court documents showing Rangel initially told police that Eric told him Palacio had died from an overdose. He told police the first time he saw the body was when Eric dragged it down the stairs of their home on a sheet. 2 weeks later, Palacio's body is found off a road near the Valley of Fire, concealed behind a bush.
Jose insisted that he didn't know where Eric was, claiming that they had split up after crossing the border. In June 2021, Jose pleaded guilty to destroying evidence and being an accessory to murder.
Very hard for us to speak about how we feel about Leslie's case. It was very frustrating seeing him trying to apologize us, asking for forgiveness, knowing that he doesn't mean it.
We're not forgetting Leslie or this case. Our focus is Eric Rangel and getting Eric in custody. That is our biggest challenge right now, and that is where we will find our justice.
Despite the serious nature of his crimes, Jose only got 2 years in prison. Imagine how Leslie's family felt when they heard that.
You don't know the pain that you caused me and my family.
A heartbreaking message for the man who helped cover up the gruesome killing of 22-year-old Leslie Palacio. On Friday, Jose Rangel was sentenced for destroying evidence and acting as an accessory to commit murder.
Although we do know they can't do anything then give him more than 2 years, it's still not really justice for us.
But it gets worse. Jose only ended up spending slightly over 8 months in jail before he was released for good behavior. That was definitely a slap in the face for the Palacio family, but they were still hopeful that they would get justice when Eric was finally captured.
We need to catch the main character.
Investigators arrested Rangel near the U.S.-Mexico border last month. He told officers he had driven to Mexico with Eric, and then they split up after that. Palacio's family says this is just the beginning.
We're not going to stop until Eric is finally caught.
In the years that followed, Metro Police and the FBI worked with Mexican authorities in an attempt to locate Eric, but he always seemed several steps ahead of them. After a while, the search went cold.
Tomorrow marking yet another year without justice, even though Eric Rangel Ibarra's father served time for helping his son remove Leslie Palacio's body from their home. The accused killer remains on the run.
Do not forget Leslie Palacio. Do not forget this horrendous crime.
3 years since 22-year-old Leslie Palacio was murdered, attorney Ophelia Markarian is once again asking for help finding her friend's accused killer.
We're still very, very hopeful that authorities will find him and bring him to justice.
Detectives suspect Eric Rangel Ibarra is hiding in Mexico.
Her family and Leslie deserve for Eric to be behind bars.
The theory is that someone or some people are helping him in some way. What would be your message to those people who know where he is?
Our message is to turn Eric in. It's been 3 years. Leslie deserves justice. Her family deserves justice.
Then, in July 2024, investigators announced that Eric Rangel Ibarra had been arrested by the Mexican authorities.
Right now at 6 o'clock, captured. Our 8 News Now investigators first to confirm the end of an international manhunt as a man accused of murdering Leslie Palacio 4 years ago is finally taken into custody.
Needless to say, Leslie's family was happy with the news because they could now finally get justice for Leslie.
The family is just very grateful that there's been progress, that he has been confirmed by Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department that Eric Rangel is in custody in Mexico, and we are just waiting for him to be extradited to the United States, where we're very, very hopeful that he will face the punishment that he deserves for what he did.
But bringing Eric back to the U.S. to face his charges is not going to be easy and could take up to several years.
Evidence has to be submitted through diplomatic channels, and then Mexican Foreign Ministry has to review all the requests, the evidence, process it.
The process involves several government agencies here, including the State Department and their Mexican counterparts.
Usually the process can take from 3 months to several years, depending on the case complexities.
As of August 2024, Eric is still being held in Mexico, and there have not been any updates on when he will be extradited to the US. But I do hope that it happens soon so he can start paying for what he did to Leslie. What do you think about this case? Do you think the Palacio family will finally get justice after all these years? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button for more videos.